You know, the first step in planning for asset protection for real estate is to create an anonymity shield. That is, why not hide the fact that you own things? I mean, if people don't know that you have it, then they're not going to want to go after you to try to take something from you because you appear to be worthless. That's what anonymity provides you. It provides a shield. It makes you appear as if you own nothing because everything has been removed from your own name. Now, creating an anonymity shield, there's an art to it. It's not as easy as some people make it out to be. But I can tell you it's very effective if you do it right. That is, if somebody's performing an asset search, your name won't pop as being on an entity or being on the real estate that you own. You know, there's a very famous individual that talks on or teaches people how to invest in real estate. And I wanted to set up a consult with this individual. Well, the way I got to create a meeting is I went out and I did some research on him, and I found a lot of property was in his own name. I found out where he lived, and I contacted him. I said, you know, here you are, a successful real estate investor in your own right, an educator on real estate, and you talk about the importance of asset protection, but I could find out a lot of what it is that you own, and I even found out where you lived. What does that tell you about the planning and the advice you've been receiving? That was my way in. Now, had I been a creditor coming after him, that could have been a completely different conversation. Could have been a shakedown lawsuit because I know that he has a lot of assets because I was able to discover where those assets are located. And then if I was able to get a judgment against him, I would know exactly where to go to file that judgment. So with anonymity planning, what we want to do is take your name off of business entities so no one knows that you have LLCs. Take your name off real estate so no one knows that you own it. Or even better yet, take your name off your vehicles or your personal bank account so no one can then file a judgment or a lien against those types of assets. Well, I'm going to show you now how you go about doing that, and follow along in the very specific manner in which I show you. You'll be able to create your own anonymity shield. All right, so let's get started with LLCs. How do you protect your limited liability company? Well, it starts with this. To create a shield for a limited liability company, you have to create your first LLC in a state that offers anonymity protection. The states that offer that would be Wyoming, Nevada, or Delaware. Those states offer anonymity protection because what they allow you to do is set up an entity and use what we refer to as a nominee manager. So in our case, we use an individual named A.T. Mathis. He's my partner. He's a founder in the firm of Anderson. And so on all of the entities that we create in these jurisdictions, we will put on A.T. Mathis as the initial manager of the limited liability company, or if it's a corporation, officer and director. Now, he's on there for filing purposes only. Once we've registered the entity and we've listed his name as the acting manager of the company, because when you file an LLC, you have to either list the manager or the member. That must be listed with the Secretary of State. That is what is required by most states. Well, when you list his name up there, people assume that A.T. Mathis is somehow involved with that company, but he's not. Because after it's been filed, he resigned. So it starts off with A.T. Mathis here as the initial manager of the company, but once we've filed it, A.T. Mathis will drop off the company, and then you become the acting manager that's undisclosed because nobody knows about this. For in these states, you do not need to update the Secretary of State when there's been this change from him to you. That is what we rely upon in creating an anonymity shield for our limited liability companies. But this right here is the first step. You have to create this shield before you do any other planning, because once the genie's out of the bottle, it's too late. If you went right away and let's say we wanted to start an LLC over here in Oklahoma, I create this LLC to own my real estate and I file it and I do it all in my own name, well then of course your name is going to be listed up here as either the member or the manager, and people are going to know that this is your LLC. And they look at the LLC, they're going to see this property, they're going to know that you're somehow tied to it. So don't start here. You start here, and then you build up. So once we start with this entity, then we go and we'll file an Oklahoma LLC to own the Oklahoma property. But when we file it, we'll list this entity as the owner, or what we call the member. See, what we're going to do with an anonymity shield is we're going to take this Oklahoma LLC and we're going to make this Wyoming LLC a 100% member in this company. So when you have to file the information report with the Secretary of State of Oklahoma, what you're going to list is the member's information, and that will be this Wyoming LLC. So what would occur then is no one will know that you're associated with this Oklahoma LLC because your name won't appear there. If they look at this LLC, if a creditor's out there looking around trying to determine who's involved with this company, it's not going to point to you. Because on the Secretary of State site, it's going to state that this Wyoming LLC is involved with this Oklahoma LLC. And then if they look at the Wyoming LLC, it's going to point to this A.T. Mathis, who's no longer involved, but they don't know that. He had resigned his position. You're now in control, but no one knows it besides you and Anderson, because that is our private information. We have attorney-client privilege here. This is not going to be disclosed to anyone. So this is how you start building an anonymity shield for your in-state venture. So each time you create an LLC to hold property, you do the exact same thing. Let's say I'm going to buy one in Texas, and this is my Texas LLC. It's going to be owned 100% again by this Wyoming LLC. So if anybody looks at the Texas LLC, it's going to point them right back down to here. So now you've protected your business interests. So no one knows how many different businesses you have because nothing is in your individual name. Now, one thing to keep in mind when you're building out this structure, you never want to serve as your own registered agent. I've seen people try to attempt this before on their own to create this type of structure, and they'll get this set up. They'll start setting up these and they'll point them back to here. But each of these companies need their own registered agent. That is a person or a company that will receive service of process if somebody wanted to sue either of these companies. So you go through this procedure to create all of this, and then when it comes to filing the registered agent, you list your own name and your own personal address up there. That is a huge mistake when you do this. You always want to make sure that you're off there, you're using a commercial registered agent. We serve as registered agents for our company's business. That's one issue. Second issue, addresses for these companies, all right? When you're setting an LLC up in your state, never use your home address for that business entity. Never do it. Because again, if you've set up this great asset protection structure that has an anonymity component built into it, and then when it comes to listing the business address for these LLCs, because your state may require an in-state business address, not all do, but if it does, you don't list your personal address because people will be able to track it right back to you. Get a P.O. box or a suite box with a mailboxes, etc., or UPS, FedEx store, something like that, so nothing comes back to your personal residence. That's what we look at. If the state allows you to use an out-of-state address, for example, let's say we're setting up a Texas LLC, and I first created my Wyoming LLC for my client. Well, when we create a Wyoming LLC, we give you an address here in Cheyenne, Wyoming. So let's just call it 333 Cheyenne, Wyoming. So that's your business address for your Wyoming LLC. Now, this is where your mail will be sent. So you can forward mail through here, and then we forward it on to our clients. But that mail comes into here to this address. This is a business address. Well, if Texas doesn't require you have a Texas business address on their initial filing, then what we'll do is we'll just use this same business address up here. You can have a Texas LLC with 333 Cheyenne, Wyoming as its business address. So if anybody sent mail to this LLC, they're actually going to send it to here. And then this person or at this office, which would be Anderson, if you're using us, we then forward it on to you. So we build out this anonymity shield by making sure that you, number two, when you're setting up these entities up here, you do not use your home address. That is a big mistake. See it all the time. That's how people destroy their anonymity planning. They do all the other steps, but then they put their personal address on there. So this is how you protect business entities if you want to ensure that no one knows that you own it. Now, how about real estate? Okay, does this provide any protection for real estate? Absolutely. This would also protect your real estate because if you deed a property, so if you're over here and you deed this house into this LLC and your name's not on the LLC and they can't trace it back to you, then yes, this would provide anonymity for your real estate as well because now your real estate is titled in this Oklahoma LLC. That Oklahoma LLC is not associated with you. However, you'll note that I am a strong proponent of land trusts and the use of those for residential real estate. And there's many reasons why. When you watch the land trust segment, I will go into that in some detail, explaining why we want to use land trusts. So you're probably going to be using a land trust at this step and not putting your residential real estate directly into the LLC, but that's okay. Because I'm going to touch on anonymity planning for land trusts right now and why you can also gain protection for a land trust, for the property that it owns. I mean, just recently, an individual contacted our firm. They're engaging in a 1031 exchange, and they want to take title in a land trust, but they do not want the property to be in their name. So what they've requested that I do is I serve as the nominee trustee of their trust. So we're going to take title in the trust in my name as trustee at the close of this exchange on the replacement property. So if anybody looked, they would not be able to associate that property back with our client because my client's name doesn't show up anywhere in any record as ever having an interest in that property. And the way you do that is by using what I said is a nominee trustee. So with land trusts, it's similar to this Wyoming structure that we have down here where you're using a nominee manager on the LLC. We're going to do the same thing, but it's not called a manager. It's called a trustee. So when we set up the trust, let's just call this the 3033 Cheyenne Trust. All right, you have to have a trustee listed, okay, because that's going to go on title. Well, initially, I will serve for my clients as their trustee, their initial trustee. I'm going to serve right there. And so you're over here. You have the property right here, and you're looking to transfer it into this trust right here. Now, you're going to be the beneficiary of your trust, okay? So you're down here. That is the owner. The beneficiary is the one that actually has all the power in this trust, in a land trust. And this is why it works for people to set up this type of trust. And they're not worried about someone like myself being the trustee because I'm only there to hold title. That's it. I have no power. I couldn't sell the property without this person's consent, which would be yours. I can't encumber the property. I can't really do anything with that property unless you tell me what to do. So you have all the control in this situation. Not to mention when you use an attorney as your trustee or a professional company, I mean, we're licensed. The last thing I want to do is jeopardize my license by trying to get squirrely with somebody's piece of property. So here's what occurs. Title's originally in your name. The property is then deeded into the name of the trust. So we take it out of your name, we transfer it into the trust name, and it goes in to that trust as, Clint Coons, all right, trustee of the Cheyenne Trust, dated the date of the trust. So that's how title would be held. So if anybody's looking at this property now, they're going to see this. Now here's where the magic comes in. Just like with the Wyoming or Nevada connection with A.T. Mathis listed as your existing manager of your company, and then he resigns, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to step down once title's been taken in the name of the trust, and then you will step up. And you'll take control as the undisclosed trustee of this trust. So you're going to move in. All of that is built into the trust document. All of those things take place at a very specific time. It's in the trust document. I'm off the trust, but nobody knows it. If they look at title, what they're going to see is that Clint, trustee of this trust. If you had the ability to search all 50 states and every county in all 50 states, you would think that I am a avid real estate investor. Now, I am a real estate investor, but not to the extent that my name shows up on title all across this country. I'm there as a nominee trustee for my clients to protect their ownership, to keep it off the public record so no one knows that they're associated with that particular real estate. Now, this is how we protect property. If you want to do it through a land trust, it's a great tool. And as you're going to find out when we get in the LLC section, though, this doesn't provide asset protection. Okay, you're going to need to take it and put that into a limited liability company. This is just the initial step. It provides anonymity. Because anonymity, as I stated earlier, if they don't know you have it, they don't know to take it from you. It's a smoke screen for most situations. They don't know that it exists out there, so they can't go and make a claim against it. But if you want true protection, you have to use business entities. So this is a great smokescreen, and it served our clients extremely well in utilizing this type of tool for the reasons that I just provided when it comes to anonymity planning. Now, we've talked about real estate through a land trust. We've talked about business interests with a nominee manager on an LLC to own various limited liability companies. How about if you want to set up a corporation? Now, if you set up a corporation, let's say I set up this corporation in California. So I create a California Inc. California requires that I list all of the officers and directors with them. So if I was the officer and director, you were, let's just say John. So John would be listed on all positions with the Secretary of State. So if anybody wanted to research this, they could find that out. Now, if you have a corporation and you want to hide your dealings with this company, you got to get a little complicated here. Rather than set that corporation up in California, and the reason why we're using a corporation many times is for the tax benefits associated with a corporation. So if you want to take advantage of that, again, you have to first start with Nevada or Wyoming. So we go Nevada. Let's just do a Nevada Corp to begin with here. We're going to start with the Nevada Corp, and we're going to go through that same procedure again with A.T. Mathis. A.T. Mathis is going to start here as your initial officer and director of your corporation for filing purposes. So his name will be listed with the Secretary of State. And then what will occur is that after it's been filed, he will step down and you will be appointed as the new officer and director. That information does not get recorded anywhere other than your corporate books. We do not have to update the state with this information. If we tried the same maneuver in California, they would require that we update the Secretary of State as soon as you took over. But since it's Nevada, it's not required. So now we've got our corp set up. Now the reason we're adopting this structure is because we want anonymity for our corporate type dealings in California. So then the next step is to create an entity that points back to here to hide the fact that we're doing business in California if somebody's looking at us. The way you accomplish that is you now set up a California LLC like this that is 100% owned by this corporation. So again, it's a member managed LLC. 100%. So when you file this LLC in California, you have to list the member. The member is this Nevada Corp. So if anybody looks at this, they see this. They don't see you. They see this guy who has already resigned. So it protects you. Now, from a tax standpoint, any activity that takes place inside of this LLC here, if say we're flipping properties, it will be taxed in California because that's income generated in California. But from a federal tax standpoint, it all passes through to this corporation. And for federal taxes, it's treated as if the C corporation down here ran the activity itself. Okay, so it's completely disregarded down to this Nevada C corporation. So from a federal tax standpoint, that income will be treated as C corporation income, which is what we wanted to accomplish. So this is how you protect a corporation if you're going to do business in different states and you don't want people to know that you're associated with that corporation. And again, just like with the LLCs, you don't want to be a registered agent. You don't want to use your business address. The last thing I want to hit on here is personal assets. Let's say your personal bank account that you have to have in your own name or your vehicles. If you don't want people to know that you own those, then again, create another trust. Instead of creating a land trust, which is set up to own real estate, create a personal property trust. We call these PPTs. You create a personal property trust here, and again, you use a nominee trustee to serve as your initial trustee of the trust. So let's just call this one the 18 Red Star Trust. You can come up with any name you want, Red Star Trust here. All right. Now, into that trust, you could put retitle your car into the name of that trust. You could put your bank account into the name of that trust. Anything that you do not want to show up in your personal name, you would put in that trust. And you're going to be the trust beneficiary here, like this. And then this person will resign, and then you'll step in as the undisclosed trustee of your trust after these assets have been retitled into there. Now, why is this important? Well, let's assume that somebody gets a judgment against you. If they have a judgment against you individually, they can take that judgment and garnish your personal bank account. That is any account that shows up in your own name. Well, if you have a personal property trust, 18 Red Star Trust, that's obviously not in your own name, so the garnishment wouldn't hit that account. So it's protected from those types of claims. Let's assume you have a fraudulent individual that's running around trying to steal title to your vehicles. This actually happened in our firm to one of our secretaries. Her vehicles were actually, the title was taken in the name of someone else. They went on the DMV because they had her VIN numbers and transferred the title from our secretary's name into their name. It's a long story about how this came to be, and it's a tragic story that the way this person got the information. But once they had it, they were able to take these titles to the 5 vehicles out of our secretary's name and put it in their name. Now we were able to get in there and get everything changed back the way it is before anything bad happened. And she actually lost the vehicles, but it taught us a lesson here. And after that, she was very concerned. She said, I don't want to own vehicles in my own name. So what we did is we created a trust. So we took the vehicles out of her name, put them into the name of the trust. So in the future, if somebody obtained her VIN number, they would have to know the owner of that vehicle. See, the reason why this person was able to take and change the title to the vehicles because they had the VIN number and they had the owner's name. And if you have that information in the state of Washington, you can easily go to the DMV's website, put in the information, person's name, John Doe, his VIN number, and from there you can change title. It's that simple. Well, now they would have to know that John Doe doesn't own it. John Doe set up a trust. Good luck at figuring that one out. So a personal property trust can provide you that type of protection as well. So here's 3 methods that we use for anonymity planning. It's an anonymity shield. It doesn't necessarily provide asset protection. It's a smoke screen, but it's an essential smoke screen when it comes to protecting your assets from outside creditors.